So maybe you're listening to this and you're saying to yourself, oh, I could never do what you're proposing. Maybe you're a mother of little kids still at home with you, or maybe you're working a full-time job and maybe you're listening to this podcast on your way to work or on your way back from work. Perhaps you're in the early stages of business, and that's when things are absolutely crazy because you're trying to do it all. Or maybe you're out of a job, and what I'm sharing sounds like a luxury.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Welcome to Represented, the podcast. I'm Aniki Shuru, racial equity coach for online business owners who want to be intentionally inclusive by building a business that is racially equitable. I created this podcast to normalize a conversation around racial inclusion so that fear is no longer the barrier that gets in the way of doing this work. This isn't about perfection, it's about progress. Whether you're taking your first steps or you're well-versed in the journey towards racial equity, this space is for you. So welcome home, friend. Let's get started.
From coast to coast, around the globe, we are represented.
Hey there, lovely. Welcome back to another episode of Represented Podcast. You absolutely loved last week's episode on family matters. Oh, thank you for the feedback in DMs on Instagram, even responding back to my email from the one that I sent out to my newsletter. Thank you so much. It really means a lot when I hear back from you and telling me how this kind of hit for you and sharing your different experiences with making time for family. So thank you so much for that. It was really reaffirming that I was on the right path, following those nudges that you feel that, I think this episode is going to hit differently, and it really, really did. Now, if you haven't listened to that episode yet and you're like, what are you talking about? This is a good place to press pause on this episode and go back and listen to that episode where I share taking a solo trip back home to Kenya for the first time in 16 years. Now, that doesn't mean that I haven't been home in 16 years. Of course, I have. I've traveled with my kids, with my husband, but I'm talking about taking a solo trip alone. That was 16 years ago before I got married, and this was the first time I was going back alone. And in it, I share some of the heart grounding moments that filled my cup. And if I'm being really honest, my cup is still overflowing. There's something about taking time alone that is not spoken about nearly as much. I feel like I've come back a better mother, a better wife, and even a better coach. And as I reflect and I think back, why is that? Why do I feel this way? And I keep coming back to the fact that I took time off completely. I didn't just dip my toe in time off for a day or two and then plug back in. I took time completely off. And it got me thinking, why have I never prioritized that kind of rest before? I've had it said that rest is resistance because it goes against the capitalist world we live in, which is all about being productive and making something, a lot of something, if we can, out of everything we do. But the sheer ability to just pause completely and just be with loved ones, that has set me off on a path of rediscovery. And that's what I want to share with you today. Power in the pause. I've been asking myself, what have I been prioritizing that I didn't need to prioritize? Have I really been spending time on things that fill up my cup or just being part of the daily grind, the daily grind without really prioritizing my deepest needs for me alone? And maybe it's because I'm at a point in my life where I can now ask myself these questions. The kids are in school. Only a few years ago, my youngest was home and hadn't started school. I was in the early stages of business and it was go, go, go. But now I'm at a different phase in my life. And as a mother, a business owner, and also being in my mid 40s, hello, perimenopause, things are a little bit different. So, what I've come to realize is that there are parts of me that have been lying dormant, waiting to be awakened. And that only happens or was able to happen through the power of pausing. And again, maybe it's a coming of age thing that as you get older, you have the ability to reprioritize things that were once important to you are not as important to you. And so, why am I doing this again? Why do I do this every day? Is it necessary? Questioning patterns and routines that possibly don't serve you the same way they served you back then. And I'm very much in that phase. Um, I'm reigniting some of the things that I loved but haven't fully immersed myself in. Like, I have always loved reading, but never fully giving myself to it. And so now I'm at a stage where I am really fanning that flame of reading, and I'm doing something I've never done before. I'm currently reading 3 books at the same time. Look, it was hard enough to read one book in one go and finish it quickly. I've always been a very slow reader. I'm the kind of reader who it's like an assignment. I take it very seriously. I don't take reading lightly. And I don't even read fiction. I tend to read the heavy stuff and biographies and real life stories. And uh, those are the kind of books where I sit down and I'm highlighting and I'm learning. And it takes me a very, very long time because it's not just casual, it's serious. And so this time around, I'm reading 3 books at the same time. I am making time. I'm prioritizing it because I'm spending less time on social media. I'm spending less time watching, shows. And I'm spending more time in prayer. I thought I used to spend, a significant amount of time in prayer. And if you know me and you've been listening to me for a while, my faith is so important to me. My Christian walk with God is really not part of, it is who I am. And it forms a big part of my identity. And so spending more and more time in prayer and understanding the character of God and understanding the role that I play and what was I created for. I'm on that discovery of why am I here? Why was I created? What is my purpose? And also being at that point where I'm prioritizing joy. Joy for me, for a long, long time, joy was tied to the things we did as a family, the things that my husband and I did together. So it was connected to something or somebody else. But now finding joy in just solitude and the things that make me, Annie, happy. And I'm doing it in a way that I haven't done before. So maybe you're listening to this and you're saying to yourself, oh, I could never do what you're proposing. Maybe you're a mother of little kids still at home with you, or maybe you're working a full-time job and maybe you're listening to this podcast on your way to work. or on your way back from work. Perhaps you're in the early stages of business, and that's when things are absolutely crazy because you're trying to do it all. Or maybe you're out of a job, and what I'm sharing sounds like a luxury, power in the pause. And you're asking yourself, what is that even? That's not something I can quite comprehend right now, given the phase of life I'm in. And I totally get that because I've been in those different phases myself. But that doesn't mean we cannot have this conversation and begin to fantasize, if I can say that, about what it could potentially look like. And what I'm coming to learn as I grow older is sometimes we don't have to wait for the right moment to indulge in certain things or to do certain things that we wanted to do, that sometimes we can and we should interrupt our schedules to do the things that will bring about something fuller in our lives. Um, well, it can be, if you're asking yourself, like, or rather saying, I can't do that. It doesn't have to be what I have done. So if you listen to my episode last week, it was all about taking that trip back home to Kenya for a month. It doesn't have to look exactly like that. It can be something much more attainable, like when hubby gets home from work, leaving him with the kids and having time on your own, like getting out of the house. I remember when I was a new mother, occasionally during the evenings, I'd leave baby with hubby and simply go to the shopping center to have some me time. Just to grab that hot chocolate or that coffee, that's your thing, and savor the moment and just sit down and just people watch. And I remember watching people and going like, oh, look at you just enjoying this time in the shopping center. You probably don't have a little one who's keeping you up all night. You're not sleep deprived. I remember I used to look at people and kind of try to go like, you're not sleep deprived. If somebody had a pram and a kid, I'd go like, I feel you, I see you. But it was just that moment of just being alone and just savoring that moment. And then walking around, I remember I'd walk around just not with anything planned in particular, but just walking around and just window shopping. And from time to time, I'd pop into some of my favorite clothing stores. I'd try on clothes and shoes just to be out in the world and just experience something different that at the time I couldn't do with a little baby. And it didn't seem like much back then, but looking back now, that was a lifeline for me. It gave me back my sanity. It allowed me to rest and return as a better version of myself. It allowed me to tend to parts of me that were old me, the things that I used to do without even thinking twice about it. Now I couldn't just do them because having a little one, they kind of take over your life. What could you do just for you where you just fill up your cup? I want you to sit with that question. What could you do that's just for you where you just fill up your cup? One of the things I've often done, especially post-COVID, is being in total silence for extended periods of time. I can literally, honestly, I can feel my energy stores just building up when I am in solitude and I am in absolute quiet. Being in a home with young kids means the noise level is high a lot of the time. And so when I get those quiet pockets of alone time, I savor them. I Now notice that when the kids want quiet, they will find me, they'll track me down. They will find me and come and just chill in silence for like a whole 5 minutes. Then it's back to using their big voices and asking questions and sharing endless stories. And what I've come to realize is in order to appreciate all they have to say, I need that quiet time so that my energy stores are built up. This moment of posing is also helping me become a better friend and a better coach. I'm listening better. And one of the key core foundations of being a great, great coach is being a good listener. And I think over time, when we don't practice pausing and just taking a break from the hustle and bustle, we forget the very thing that makes us who we are as coaches. And so I feel like I'm a better listener. I'm not in a hurry to read between the lines. And for the first time in a long time, I don't feel responsible for my client's success. I'm simply holding space and guiding them home to themselves. And this is something I couldn't do unless I took the time to pause, to disconnect in order to connect, to unplug in order to plug in. One of the things I'd really love to do in my lifetime, and sooner rather than later, and I've never said this out loud, but I'm saying it now for the first time, is to go on a silent retreat. I think I've either seen it in movies or read about it. You know, the way people go to like a monastery and they're there and it's just silence and food is brought like, lunch and dinner, and you're just in your room and you're just quiet. Or maybe you walk the lawns of the particular place you are at. You're just on your own. You're not in a group with others, but it's just quiet. I'd love the ability to just rock up in a cozy accommodation, no technology whatsoever, just a notebook, a pen, my Bible, and food, like food that I'm not making, but food that is being brought at the different times. If you know a place where they run silent retreats, let me know. It's something I'd really love to try. And I've been saying it to myself for many years, but I feel like, especially after taking this pause and where I am at now in my life, I have the ability to go on a silent retreat, and I'd really love to try that. Is that something you'd like to try? Are you listening to this and going like, I could not be quiet for like half an hour. That is just, no, I couldn't be quiet with my thoughts. What would I do? Um, I would love to try that. I don't, and what gets me excited is who will I be on the other side of this? Not having access to my phone, even just to talk, not having access to technology in any form, because there's so many times you think a thought and you're like, I'm going to google this, I'm going to google this. And that's what I do, that a fair bit. And that's when I get into that rabbit hole of, okay, you start searching for this, and before you know it, you've gone so deep you don't even know where you're at or how to come out, and you're like, I've been here for such a long time, how did I get here? I'd love to not do that. um and so, lovely one, what's one thing, just one thing, you could schedule to do this week that will fill your cup? Because remember, rest is a form of resistance. And as you resist the normal hassle and bustle of go, 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 you might find a piece of you that's been yearning to be discovered. And in so doing, makes you a better you, a better version. And as you ponder this work of racial equity, because I want to tie this back to the reason why you're here, being culturally inclusive and sensitive, this version of slowed down you, paused you, rested you, might be just what you never knew you needed in order to play the role you ought to, and perhaps didn't know how when it comes to this work of racial equity. What I do know for sure is when you are well rested, it allows you to get clear on where your focus should be. And doing this work requires that we are well rested so we can make a deeper, more meaningful contribution. So, regardless of where you're at in your life, whether you're running a business, whether you're a mom, whether you're working in the corporate arena, wherever you are, we all need the power in the pause. We all need to just stop and pause because there is power in pausing. If this message is hitting home for you, you're listening to this and you're like, Annie, there's something that you're saying here and it's tagging on me. Could you hit me up on the gram? My handle is annie.gishiru on Instagram, and let me know, what are you taking away from this conversation, or what's coming up for you? I'd really love to know. And if you're feeling the nudge to pause, but life is so hectic, you're so busy. In fact, you're listening to this podcast maybe on high speed because you have things to do. Reach out. I'd love to hold that space for you. If you're just feeling, I'm feeling the nudge to pause, but I don't know how, reach out. Reach out. I'd love to hold that space for you. All right, my beautiful friend. Until next time, take care.
We are represented. We are represented. We are represented.
Thank you so much for tuning in. Why don't you go ahead and hit that subscribe button and leave a review so this podcast can reach more online business owners, and together we can begin to normalize racial inclusion in the online coaching space. I'd love to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land where this podcast episode was recorded, the Wiradjuri people in central New South Wales, Australia. Music produced in Nairobi, Kenya by Patrick St. Pimbaru and Kambua Mathu. Vocals by Joanne Matata.
Represented.